At the most expensive wedding Delhi had ever seen, a billionaire businessman humiliated a poorly dressed old man in front of 500 guests. "Security, remove this beggar from my daughter's wedding," he shouted. But when the old man reached into his pocket and pulled out a yellow document, the entire room went silent. What was written on that paper would expose a secret that had been buried for 30 years. A secret that would destroy the businessman's reputation and change his daughter's life forever. Before this story unfolds, tell me, what city are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. And if you believe karma always finds a way, smash that subscribe button. Because what happens next will leave you speechless. Let's begin. It was 23rd December 2018, and the temperature in Mumbai had dropped to an unusual 15 degrees Celsius. Rajesh Kapoor sat shivering in the back seat of his nephew Vikram's luxury SUV, confused about where they were taking him. At 68 years old, Rajesh had lived with his younger brother's family for the past 3 years, ever since his small tailoring shop had failed and he'd lost his rented apartment. "Uncle, we need to talk," Vikram said from the driver's seat, his voice cold and formal. Next to him sat his wife Kavita, her face set in an expression of barely concealed disgust. In her lap was a folder of documents. Rajesh's brother Mahesh, who owned a successful import-export business, sat next to Rajesh in the back, avoiding eye contact. "We've made a decision as a family," Mahesh said quietly. "This arrangement isn't working anymore." Rajesh felt his stomach drop. For 3 years, he'd tried to be invisible in their large South Mumbai apartment. He'd taken the smallest room, eaten after everyone else, helped with household chores, asked for nothing beyond basic shelter. He knew his presence embarrassed them. His worn clothes, his lack of education, his failed business, his very existence a reminder that the Kapoor family hadn't always been wealthy. But he'd hoped his usefulness, his quiet acceptance of their contempt, would be enough to keep a roof over his head. "We are taking you somewhere you'll be more comfortable," Kavita said, her tone suggesting she was doing him a favor. "A place with people more suitable to your circumstances." The SUV pulled up in front of a building in Bandra with a small sign, "Sara Senior Citizen Shelter, Charitable Home for the Elderly." Rajesh's heart sunk. This wasn't a comfortable retirement home. This was a last resort shelter for destitute seniors with nowhere else to go. "You are leaving me here?" Rajesh's voice cracked. "But it's 2 days before Christmas. Can't this wait until after the holidays?" "I promise I'll be even quieter. I won't." Mahesh cut him off. "The decision is made. Bye. We've already spoken to the shelter management. They're expecting you. We paid the first month's fees. After that, it's covered by government assistance for indigent elderly. You'll be fine." Vikram opened the car door. The cold December air rushed in, carrying with it the smell of street food and exhaust fumes. A shelter worker, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Rajesh Kapoor, please come with me. We'll get you registered and show you to your bed." Rajesh looked at his brother, his eyes pleading. "Mahesh, we grew up together. We shared everything as children. How can you do this to me?" Mahesh finally met his eyes, and what Rajesh saw there wasn't cruelty exactly, but something worse, indifference. "You are a burden we can no longer carry. Bye. My children are embarrassed to bring friends home because of you. My business associates have seen you and asked uncomfortable questions. Kavita's family makes jokes about us housing charity cases. You've had 3 years to get back on your feet. You haven't. We've done our duty. Now you need to take care of yourself. I'm 68 years old. I have arthritis. Who's going to hire me?" Rajesh's voice rose in desperation. Vikram spoke for the first time since they'd arrived, his voice hard. "That's not our problem. Uncle, you made your choices in life. You chose to be a small tailor instead of getting a real education. You chose to trust a roaring business partner who ran off with your savings. You chose not to plan for your future. Now you live with those consequences. We all make our beds. Kavita handed the folder to the shelter worker. These are his identification documents, medical records, and his Aadhaar card. He has high blood pressure medication that needs to be taken daily. We've included a 3-month supply. She said it like she was dropping off a package, not a human being, not her husband's uncle who had attended their wedding, who had given them gifts he couldn't afford, who had loved their children despite their obvious disdain for him. Rajesh climbed out of the SUV slowly, his arthritic knees protesting. He had one small bag containing his few possessions, some clothes, a photograph of his late wife who had died 10 years ago, a small Ganesha idol his mother had given him, and exactly 237 rupees in cash. Everything he owned in the world fit in one bag. The shelter worker took his arm gently, kindly, and started leading him toward the entrance. Wait. Rajesh turned back to the SUV. Can I at least have your phone number? In case of emergency. Vikram was already starting the engine. The shelter has our contact information if absolutely necessary. Don't call unless it's truly urgent. We are going to go off for the holidays. Then I have a business trip to Singapore. We'll be very busy. The window rolled up. The SUV pulled away. Rajesh stood in the cold December night, watching his family disappear into Mumbai's traffic, and felt something inside him break. The shelter worker, whose name tag read, Sister Mary, squeezed his arm gently. Come inside, Uncle. It's cold. Let's get you settled. It's not so bad here. We have clean beds, 3 meals a day, and the other residents are kind. You'll be okay. But as Rajesh followed her into the shelter, past the peeling paint and the smell of institutional cooking and old age, he wasn't sure he would be okay. He'd lost everything, his business, his home, his dignity, and now, finally, his family. What did he have left? The Sara Senior Citizens Shelter housed 43 elderly residents in a 3-story building that had seen better days. The rooms were small, each containing 4 narrow beds, separated by thin curtains for privacy. Rajesh was assigned to room 7 on the 2nd floor, sharing space with 3 other men. A former bus driver with dementia, a retired schoolteacher who had been abandoned by his children, and a man who never spoke and spent his days staring at the wall. The daily routine was rigid and monotonous. Wake at 6 a.m. to the sound of a bell. Communal bathroom time from 6 to 7 a.m., with long queues and never enough hot water. Breakfast at 7:30 a.m., usually watery tea, 2 pieces of bread, and sometimes a banana if donations had been good. Free time until lunch, which meant sitting in the common room watching a television that only got 3 channels, all of them playing the same soap operas and news programs. Rajesh struggled to adapt. The food was barely adequate. Lentils and rice for lunch and dinner, occasionally with vegetables that were more stems than actual vegetable. His blood pressure medication ran out after 3 months, and the shelter couldn't afford to refill it. He felt constantly tired. His joints ached from the thin mattresses in cold rooms, and the nose, elderly people coughing, crying out in sleep, the general sounds of institutional living, made rest difficult. But worse than the physical discomfort was the psychological weight of abandonment. He'd watch other residents receive visitors, children who came weekly, grandchildren who brought sweets and sat talking for hours. Some residents left the shelter, reunited with families who had sorted out their problems. Rajesh had no visitors. He called his brother's number 3 times in the first month, once for his birthday, once when he fell sick with fever, once just to hear a familiar voice. Each time, Vikram answered, sounded irritated, said they were busy, and hung up quickly. After the 3rd call, the number was blocked. 5 months into his shelter stay, Rajesh made a decision. He wouldn't let bitterness consume him. He wouldn't spend his remaining years waiting for a family that had made clear he was disposable. Instead, he would make something of this life, limited as it was. He started helping Sister Mary with administrative tasks. His tailoring business had required meticulous record-keeping, and the shelter's paperwork was a mess. He organized files, updated donor lists, and created a better system for tracking medication schedules. He began teaching other residents to read and write. Many were illiterate or barely literate, and he'd remembered enough from his own limited schooling to help them. He taught them to sign their names instead of using thumbprints, to read medicine labels, to write simple letters to children who never wrote back. The activity gave him purpose. The gratitude of his students gave him dignity that his family had stripped away. One day, about 8 months into his shelter stay, a young man in an expensive suit visited the shelter. He introduced himself as Arjun Mehta, a social worker conducting research on elderly care facilities for an NGO. He spent hours interviewing residents, taking notes, photographing the conditions. When he interviewed Rajesh, he seemed particularly interested in his story, the failed business, the family abandonment, the adaptation to shelter life. "Mr. Kapoor," Arjun said, "I'm struck by your attitude. Most people in your situation are bitter, depressed, angry, but you are teaching classes, helping with administration, making the best of terrible circumstances. Why?" Rajesh thought about it. "Because bitterness would destroy me faster than this place ever could. My family chose to abandon me. I can't change that. But I can choose who I am in response. I choose to be useful. I choose to maintain my dignity. They can take everything from me except my character. That's mine to keep or throw away." Arjun smiled, wrote something in his notebook, and thanked Rajesh for his time. Before leaving, he pressed a card into Rajesh's hand. "If you ever need anything, call this number. I'm serious. Anything at all." Rajesh thanked him politely but didn't take it seriously. What could a social worker do for a destitute senior citizen that Sister Mary wasn't already doing? He put the card in his pocket and forgot about it. 2 years passed. Then 3. Rajesh's health deteriorated slowly. The lack of proper medication, the poor nutrition, the stress of institutional living all took their toll. He developed a persistent cough that wouldn't go away. His arthritis worsened to the point where walking was painful. He was 71 now, and he could feel his body failing. Sister Mary arranged for occasional visits from volunteer doctors, but they could do little without resources for proper treatment. In his 4th year at the shelter, Rajesh received news that shook him. His brother Mesh had died suddenly of a heart attack at age 65. Vikram called the shelter, not to invite Rajesh to the funeral, but to inform him curtly that it had already happened. "I thought you should know," Vikram said, his voice emotionless. "The cremation was yesterday. We didn't think you'd want to come. And honestly, we didn't want you there. The business community attended. It would have been awkward explaining you." Rajesh sat with the phone in his hand long after Vikram hung up. His brother, his only brother, the person he'd grown up with, shared childhood secrets with, protected from bullies, celebrated festivals with, was gone. And Rajesh hadn't been allowed to say goodbye because he was an embarrassment. That night, for the first time since entering the shelter, Rajesh cried. Not for himself, not for his circumstances, but for the family bonds that had been so thoroughly destroyed by shame and pride. It was a humid August morning in 2023, 4 years and 8 months after Rajesh had been dropped to the shelter, when Sister Mary rushed into the common room with an expression of complete bewilderment. "Rajesh, uncle, there's someone here to see you. Very important person. Very unusual." She seemed flustered, which was out of character for the normally unflappable nun. They're waiting in my office. Please come quickly. Rajesh, confused and slightly alarmed, followed her down the narrow hallway. His mind raced with possibilities. Had something happened to Vikram? Was there legal trouble? Had the shelter made some mistake with his paperwork? Sister Mary opened her office door, and Rajesh found himself facing the people. Arjun Mehta, the social worker who had interviewed him years ago, and an elegant woman in her 60s wearing an expensive silk sari and carrying herself with unmistakable authority. Mr. Kapoor, Arjun said warmly, standing to shake Rajesh's hand. It's wonderful to see you again. I'd like you to meet Dr. Meera Krishnan. She has something quite extraordinary to discuss with you. Dr. Krishnan smiled, her eyes kind but assessing. Please, sit down, Mr. Kapoor. What I'm about to tell you will come as quite a shock, and I want you to be comfortable. Rajesh sat cautiously. Dr. Krishnan pulled out a folder containing numerous documents and photographs. Mr. Kapoor, do you remember a man named Suresh Malhotra? You knew him approximately 45 years ago, in 1978, when you were both young men working in the garment district. Rajesh's mind worked backward through decades. Suresh Malhotra. The name was familiar but distant. Then memory clicked into place. Yes, Suresh worked at a fabric warehouse. We were friends for a few years before he left Mumbai. I heard he went abroad somewhere. Singapore, I think. We lost touch. Dr. Krishnan nodded. Yes, he went to Singapore in 1980. Mr. Kapoor, Suresh Malhotra became one of Singapore's most successful businessmen. He built a textile empire worth over $2 billion. Hotels, factories, shipping companies. His businesses spanned Southeast Asia. He never married, had no children, and for the past 40 years, he never forgot his friends from his early days in Mumbai, especially you. Rajesh stared at her, not comprehending. I don't understand. Why would he remember me? We were just friends when we were young. I haven't spoken to him in over 40 years. Dr. Krishnan's expression softened. Because you saved his life, Mr. Kapoor. In 1979, Suresh was beaten by loan sharks who he owed money to. They left him bleeding in an alley. You found him, took him to a hospital, paid his medical bills with money you couldn't afford, and let him stay with you until he recovered. Do you remember? The memory came flooding back. Suresh's broken ribs, the blood, the terrified night rush to the government hospital, scraping together money for treatment. I remember, Rajesh said quietly. But that was nothing. Anyone would have helped. He was my friend. Dr. Krishnan smiled. That's exactly what Suresh said you'd say. But Mr. Kapoor, that nothing changed Suresh's entire life. While recovering at your home, he realized he needed to leave Mumbai to start fresh somewhere he could succeed. You gave him 5,000 rupees, your entire savings at the time, to help him get to Singapore. Do you remember that? Rajesh did remember. 5,000 rupees in 1980 was a fortune for a young tailor. He'd given it to Suresh because his friend had been desperate, broken, without options. I told him to pay me back when he could, Rajesh said. But I never expected to see that money again. People in desperate situations don't usually return to repay old debts. Dr. Krishnan's eyes were glistening now. Suresh never forgot that debt, Mr. Kapoor. Every year, on the anniversary of the day you saved him, he tried to find you. But you'd moved, changed jobs, and in those pre-internet days, tracking someone down was difficult. 3 years ago, she continued, Suresh was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was given 2 years to live. His final wish was to find you, to thank you, to repay the debt he'd carried for 40 years. He hired investigators, contacted old associates in Mumbai, searched everywhere. 2 years ago, they finally found you, here, at this shelter. Suresh was devastated to learn what had happened to you, how your family had treated you. Arjun spoke up. That's where I came in. Suresh contacted my NGO, which I didn't know was actually funded by him, and asked me to visit you, to assess your situation without revealing who would send me. He wanted to understand your character, to see if you were still the good man he remembered or if hardship had changed you. My report confirmed what he believed. You were still kind, still generous, still dignified despite everything. Dr. Krishnan pulled out a photograph from her folder. It showed a thin, elderly man in a hospital bed, his face gaunt but his eyes bright. This was taken 3 months ago. Suresh wanted desperately to come to Mumbai himself, to thank you in person, to bring you to Singapore, to give you the life you deserved. But his cancer had advanced you far. He couldn't travel, so he sent me instead. I'm his attorney and executor of his estate. She pulled out another document. Mr. Kapoor, Suresh Malhotra passed away 6 weeks ago in Singapore. In his will, he left detailed instructions regarding you. He wanted to repay your kindness, your 5,000 rupees that saved his life. He calculated that 5,000 rupees in 1980, if invested wisely, would be worth approximately. She paused, watching Rajesh's face. 500 million US dollars today. About 4,000 crore rupees. The room spun. Rajesh gripped the arms of his chair. That's not possible. That's an impossible amount of money. There must be some mistake. Dr. Krishnan shook her head. There's no mistake. Suresh was worth over $2 billion. 4,000 crore rupees represents less than a quarter of his estate. The rest goes to various charities. But this portion, this is specifically for you, because you saved his life, because you gave everything you had when he had nothing, because you expected nothing in return. Sister Mary had to bring Rajesh water and make him sit quietly for 20 minutes while he processed this impossible information. Dr. Krishnan patiently explained the logistics. The money was held in trust in Singapore, but arrangements had been made to transfer it to India through legal channels. There would be taxes, legal fees, various complications, but the final amount would still be staggering. Rajesh would never want for anything again. More than that, he would be one of the wealthiest men in Mumbai. There's more, Dr. Krishnan said gently. Suresh left you a letter. He wrote it 2 weeks before he died. Would you like to read it now, or would you prefer privacy? Rajesh's hand shook as he took the envelope. The handwriting was weak but legible. I read it now, he said quietly. The letter was 2 pages, written in Hindi, Suresh's words reaching across 4 decades and from beyond the grave. My dearest friend Rajiv, if you are reading this, I'm gone, and Dr. Krishnan has found you. I hope you're well, though I fear you may not be. I've learned what your family did to you, and my heart breaks. You, who showed me such kindness, deserved better from those who shared your blood. But that's ending now. I'm repaying a debt 40 years old. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. You gave me everything when I was nothing. Now I give you everything I built, or at least a portion of it. You made my success possible. You should share in it. The letter continued. I want you to know that every achievement in my life I owe to you. The money you gave me bought my ticket to Singapore and kept me fed those first desperate months. The confidence you gave me, treating me like I was worth saving, gave me the courage to rebuild. Every hotel I built, every business I started, I thought Rajesh believed in me when no one else did. I can't fail him. You were my foundation, my friend, and I never forgot. Rajesh's tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink slightly. The letter concluded, I've asked Dr. Krishnan to help you with everything. Don't be afraid of this money. It's yours. Earned through kindness, which is the most valuable currency there is. Use it however you wish. Help others. Live comfortably. Enjoy the years you have left. Whatever brings you joy. But please, my friend, don't let bitterness consume you. Your family failed you, but don't let that failure make you small. Be the generous, kind man I remember. That man is worth more than all my billions. Your friend always, Suresh. When Rajesh finished reading, the room was silent except for the sound of his quiet weeping. Sister Mary had tears streaming down her face. Even Dr. Krishan, who would surely read the letter before, looked emotional. Finally, Rajesh looked up. What do I do now? I don't understand what happens next. I'm an old man in a shelter. I don't know how to be this. He gestured helplessly at the document spread before him. Dr. Krishnan smiled. First, we get you proper medical care. I've arranged for you to be admitted to Breach Candy Hospital today for a complete health assessment and treatment of all your conditions. Then we set you up in comfortable temporary accommodation while you decide where you'd like to live permanently. My law firm will handle all the financial and legal matters. You don't need to worry about any of it. Just focus on your health and your future. But there's something else you should know, she added carefully. News of this inheritance will become public. It's too large to hide, and there are legal requirements for transparency in international wealth transfers. That means your family will find out. The media will find out. Everyone will know that the poor uncle they abandoned is now a billionaire. How do you want to handle that? Rajesh was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. I want to throw a party. A big one. I want to invite everyone from this shelter, all the residents who have been my friends these past years. I want to invite Sister Mary and the staff, who have shown me kindness when my own blood wouldn't. And yes, I want to invite my nephew Vikram and his family. I want them to see what they threw away. Not because I want revenge, but because I want them to understand what really matters in life. Over the next 2 weeks, Rajesh's transformation was remarkable. Proper medical care and medication addressed his chronic conditions. Good food and rest restored some of his strength. Custom-tailored clothes replaced his shelter garments. But the most significant change was internal. The defeated, forgotten old man began to remember who he'd been before hardship broke him. A successful tailor, a kind friend, a man of dignity and principle. Dr. Krishnan's law firm handled everything with remarkable efficiency. Within 3 weeks, the first transfer of funds hit Rajesh's new bank account. 500 crore rupees, with more to follow as the estate was settled. Rajesh stared at the bank statement, unable to process the number. The bank manager who had opened his account had treated him with a deference Rajesh had never experienced before. Money, he realized, changed how the world saw you, even if you were the same person inside. He bought a modest but comfortable apartment in Bandra, not far from the shelter. Nothing ostentatious. He didn't need to prove anything. He furnished it simply but well, with one room specifically set up as a guest room for shelter residents who needed temporary private space. He established a foundation with 50 crore rupees to improve conditions at Sahara Shelter and dozens of others like it across Mumbai. Sister Mary cried when he told her, "This will change so many lives. Uncle, so many elderly people will have dignity because of your generosity." "It's not my generosity," Rajesh corrected her gently. "It's Suref's. I'm just a channel. He wanted to help people, and now he is, through me." But privately, Rajesh understood that Suresh had given him something more valuable than money. He'd given him back his sense of worth, his dignity, his ability to be generous instead of dependent. The money was wonderful, yes, but the restoration of his identity was priceless. 5 years and 2 months after being abandoned at the shelter, on a clear February morning in 2024, Rajesh executed the plan he'd been carefully preparing for weeks. He'd hired an event management company to organize what he told them was a reunion party at a 5-star hotel. He'd sent formal invitations to everyone who mattered, the 43 residents of Sara Shelter, Sister Mary and all the staff, Dr. Krishan and Arjun, several friends he'd reconnected with from his earlier life, and, most significantly, his nephew Vikram Kapoor and his entire family. The invitation to Vikram had been delivered by a law firm, formal and mysterious. It mentioned that a matter concerning the estate of Mesh Kapoor needed to be discussed, that Rajesh Kapoor requested his presence, and that it would be in Vikram's interest to attend. Vikram, smelling possible inheritance complications, had agreed to come, though he complained to his wife Kata about having to see that pathetic old man again. What Vikram didn't know was that Rajesh had arranged something special for the occasion. Working with Dr. Krishnan's contacts, he chartered a private jet to bring several special guests from Singapore. Suresh Malhotra's former business partners and friends, people who had known Suresh during his rise and who had specifically asked to meet the man Suresh had credited as the foundation of his success. The jet was scheduled to land at Mumbai's private aviation terminal at 10 a.m., just before the party began at noon. That morning, Rajesh stood at the arrival gate of the private terminal, flanked by Dr. Krishnan and Arjun. He was wearing an elegant silk kurta, custom-tailored, his health restored enough that he looked a decade younger than his 73 years. When the Gulfstream G650 touched down, when the stairs extended and 6 distinguished business people descended, Rajesh felt a surge of emotion. Suresh should have been on that plane. Suresh should have been here to see this moment. But in a way, he was. His generosity, his memory, his love for his old friend, all of it was present. The Singapore delegation greeted Rajesh with warmth and respect. They'd all heard the story of the young tailor who had saved Suresh's life, who had given everything and asked for nothing. Several of them had tears in their eyes as they shook Rajesh's hand. Suresh talked about you constantly, one elderly Chinese businessman said. He said you were the best of humanity. He said he spent 40 years trying to become worthy of your friendship. It's an honor to finally meet you. At noon, the hotel ballroom was packed. The shelter residents, many wearing new clothes Rajesh had quietly purchased for them, sat at tables laden with food they'd never normally afford. Sister Mary and her staff were there, looking slightly overwhelmed. Friends and business associates Rajesh had reconnected with mingled politely. The Singapore delegation commanded attention simply by their presence and obvious wealth. And in the back, looking confused and slightly uncomfortable, sat Vikram Kapoor and his family. Vikram had nearly turned around when he saw the venue, a 5-star hotel, not the shabby location he'd expected for anything involving his uncle. But curiosity kept him there, and a nagging worry that maybe there was actually something important about his father's estate. He barely recognized Rajesh when the old man took the stage. This couldn't be the same broken person they dumped at the shelter 5 years ago. This man radiated confidence, health, dignity. "Thank you all for coming," Rajesh began, his voice strong and clear. 5 years ago, some of you saw me at my lowest point. Some of you helped me when I had nothing. Some of you showed me kindness when I was discarded like garbage. And some of you... He looked directly at Vikram. Some of you threw me away because I was poor, because I was embarrassing, because I was inconvenient. The room had gone silent. "I want to tell you a story," Rajesh continued. 45 years ago, I met a young man named Suresh Malhotra. He was desperate, broken, beaten by life. I helped him, not because I expected anything in return, but because it was the right thing to do. I gave him everything I had, medical care, shelter, my life savings to start fresh. Then I forgot about it. I didn't keep a ledger of what he owed me. I just moved on with my life. Suresh didn't forget. He became one of Asia's most successful businessmen, worth billions of dollars. And when he was dying, his final act was to find me and repay a debt he carried for 4 decades. Rajesh nodded to Dr. Krishnan, who activated the presentation screen behind him. Documents appeared: the will, the bank transfers, newspaper articles about Suresh's business empire, and finally, the bottom line: Rajesh Kapoor's current net worth, displayed in rupees and dollars. 4,000 crore rupees. The room gasped. Vikram's face had gone white. His wife Kavita looked like she might faint. Their children sat frozen, staring at numbers they couldn't fully process. The uncle they'd mocked, abandoned, treated as worthless. He was richer than they could imagine, richer than their entire extended family combined, richer than many of Mumbai's famous business dynasties. "I'm telling you this not to brag," Rajesh said quietly, but to illustrate a point. Kindness has value. Generosity has returns you can't calculate. When you treat people as disposable, when you judge them only by their current circumstances, when you abandon family because they're inconvenient, you are not just being cruel. You are being foolish. You never know who people really are, what they're capable of, or how the universe might reward their character. He looked at Vikram again. "My nephew and his family threw me away like trash. They left me at a shelter on a cold December night because I was poor and embarrassing. They didn't come to my brother's funeral because I would make them look bad. They blocked my phone number because hearing my voice was annoying. They treated me as if my poverty had stripped me of my humanity." His voice was calm, factual, without anger. Somehow that made it more devastating. "I've invited Vikram and his family here today for the reasons," Rajesh continued, still addressing the room full of guests. "First, because I wanted them to see that the man they discarded had value all along. My worth wasn't determined by my bank account. It was determined by my character, by the choices I made, by how I treated people when I had nothing to offer them. Suresh saw that value 45 years ago. Sister Mary saw it in the shelter. My friends here saw it." He gestured to the shelter residents. "Everyone saw it except my own family. Second, I wanted to give them an opportunity they didn't give me, a chance at redemption." The room stirred. Vikram looked up, hope flickering across his face for the first time. Perhaps this was all a setup for reconciliation. Perhaps his uncle was about to forgive them, welcome them back, share this incredible wealth with family. Perhaps their cruelty would be erased by his generosity. Rajesh seemed to read his thoughts. "But redemption doesn't mean I'm going to support you financially or pretend the past didn't happen. You don't get access to this money. You made it very clear 5 years ago that I wasn't family. I accept that decision. We are not family. We are just people who share some DNA and a painful history. Redemption means something else. It means you have a chance to learn from this, to become better people, to stop judging others by their circumstances." He pulled out a folder. "Vikram, I've done some research into your business. It's struggling. You made some poor investments, and you're facing serious cash flow problems. Within 6 months, you likely face bankruptcy unless something changes. I know this because I've had my people look into it, not to gloat, but to understand whether the universe's justice was already at work. It seems it is." Vikram's face confirmed the truth of Rajesh's words. The room watched as a wealthy man crumbled under the weight of his unfailing fortunes. "I'm not going to bail you out," Rajesh said firmly, "but I am going to give you something more valuable, a chance to rebuild your character. I'm establishing a job training program for people who have fallen on hard times, people like I was, people your family would consider worthless. You are going to volunteer there every week for at least 2 years. You are going to teach business skills, help with job placements, treat these people with dignity. If you refuse, nothing happens. You go home. You deal with your bankruptcy. We never speak again. If you accept, you don't get paid. You don't get recognition. You don't get to rebuild your reputation with society. You just get the chance to rebuild your soul by serving people you once would have scorned. That's the offer. That's your redemption path. Take it or leave it. The room waited. Vikram sat frozen, his pride warring with his desperation, his arrogance fighting against his fear. Finally, his wife Kavita leaned over and whispered something in his ear. He nodded slowly. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "I'll volunteer. Not because I expect anything from you, but because you were right. I was wronged. We were wronged. I don't know if I can change, but I should try." Rajesh nodded. "Good. Report to the address Sister Mary will give you next Monday morning. Work hard.